I don't know about you guys, but there's not a day that goes by where I don't daydream about living off dividends. Like, one of the things I look forward to most in life is waking up knowing the roof over my head, the car in my garage, and the Juan's Flamin' fajitas I'll be having for dinner that night can all be paid for with the cash flow from my dividend stock portfolio. The frustrating thing about this, though, is that turning this dream into a reality and being able to actually live off dividends takes a decent amount of time, and that's what we'll be going over in this video. I'm going to share with you my plan to reach financial freedom and finally start living off these dividends. I'll show you about how long it might take me to get there, what my portfolio will look like at the time, and how you can figure all of this stuff out for yourself. The equation to do so is actually pretty simple. There are two main factors that play a role in determining your portfolio's rate of growth: your contributions and your returns. When you multiply these things together, that'll tell you how much time it will take to reach a point where you can live off dividends. And this is a very simplistic way of looking at it, so we'll break these down a bit more, starting with your returns. When it comes to dividend investing, there are two main types of returns you can receive. First and foremost, you have share price returns, or capital appreciation, which is where you see the shares you own go up in value over time. At least hopefully that's the case. Then in addition to that, you also have your dividend income, which is another different type of return. Share price appreciation is an unrealized return, which means that you'll only actually receive that return if and when you sell the stock, as opposed to dividend income, which is realized immediately. Like, as soon as you get that dividend payment, which you don't have to sell the stock to receive, that cash flow return is realized. It is real and it is there. And as someone whose main goal is to someday live off their dividend income, I don't want to have to someday sell my shares down the road in order to realize and receive the gains from my investments. I don't want to have to let them go in order to receive the benefit from owning them, if that makes sense. But at any rate, these are the two different types of returns. And having said all of that, I do think it's important to see both of them in your portfolio. And when you add them together, you get your total return. So as an example, if you own a stock that appreciates in value by 7% one year and it pays you a dividend at a 3% yield, your total return would be 10%. Pretty straightforward. But then on the dividend side, there's an extra dimension to this. Many dividend paying companies have a tendency to increase their dividend payments every year, and some do so at a pretty aggressive rate, which is like NOS for your dividend income if you guys watch Fast and the Furious. And the companies that do this are the kind you want to invest in, as that will increase the cash flow return you receive on your investments. Now, as an example, guys, let's take a look at Lowe's here, who has a 60-year dividend growth streak. They've been increasing this dividend for twice as long as I've been alive, and they've been doing so at a pretty aggressive rate. At least here in the last 5 years, they've raised their dividend on average by 18%. That's an 18% pay raise every single year just for being a shareholder of Lowe's. Now, if we go back 10 years, in 2014, we can see that Lowe's had an average dividend yield throughout the year of 1.46%, which really isn't all too different than the stock's current yield, which I think was sitting at about 1.8%. Now, a dividend yield in this range really isn't anything to write home about. It's not a super high starting yield by any means, but what's crazy about this is that because Lowe's has increased their dividend by such an aggressive rate over the years, your cash flow return today, if you would have bought the stock 10 years ago back in 2014, would be so much higher than that starting 1.5% yield. If you would have bought shares of Lowe's exactly 10 years ago back on May 12th, 2014, your yield on cost, which is a metric that compares your cash flow return against the original purchase price of your shares, your yield on cost today would be 9.7%, which is quite a departure from that starting yield of 1.5%. Now, moving on, the other factor that plays a role in this equation is your contributions, or in other words, how much you're investing into your portfolio. And this is especially important when you're first starting out. At the beginning, your portfolio isn't yet at a level where the compound interest is able to move the needle in a very significant way. A lot of the heavy lifting when you first get started is done by you and your contributions. And according to Charlie Munger, this is the case until you reach about $100,000 or so. He said that you have to do whatever it takes to reach that number, and then after that, you can start to relax a little bit, because at that point, compound interest will begin to move the needle a bit more. But up until then, the amount you're contributing to your portfolio will make the biggest difference, and I've definitely felt that so far. If we take a look here at my dividend portfolio tracking spreadsheet, which you can start using for free, there is a link to download this spreadsheet in the description of the video. We can see here that I'm not quite yet at the $100,000 mark. I'm definitely making some good progress, but right now my portfolio is valued at about $69,500. And at this time, between my two portfolios, my taxable brokerage account and my Roth IRA, I'm investing $230 every single week, which is a good chunk of change. And I'd like to keep increasing that amount from here, but I definitely didn't start out by investing this much. At the beginning, I was maybe investing like $20 to $25 per week. And And between then and now, I have worked diligently to be able to increase that amount. And there are two different levers you can pull to do this. You can either increase your income or you can reduce your spending, or preferably you can do a combination of the two. For most people, figuring out where you can cut back on some expenses is probably an easier and more immediate way to find more money to invest. And the best way to do this, if you're not already doing it, is through budgeting for sure. And on that note, I want to tell you about one of my favorite budgeting platforms and the sponsor of today's video, Squad. As investors, we are constantly looking for more money to contribute to our portfolios. And the best way to do so and to see where all of your money is going is through budgeting. Everyone should be budgeting. The problem though is that most budgeting apps these days make you give up your bank login credentials in order to sync your transactions. And while this does make things convenient, giving up this information comes with some pretty serious risks. By providing your bank login credentials to these third-party apps, you're giving them access to some pretty sensitive financial data, including your account number, routing number, full name, address, and you even give them the ability to initiate transfers, which is kind of sketchy. But this isn't the case with Squad. Squad prioritizes your privacy and security and is unlike any other money tracking platform I've used in the sense that it allows you to automatically sync all your transactions without making you give up your bank login credentials. Instead, all you need to do is set up your spending and deposit alerts from your bank or credit card provider to the Squad Scan email address you receive upon signing up. And then from there, Squad instantly converts these alerts into categorized transactions in the app. All in all, guys, it took me maybe 2 minutes to get everything set up, and that includes uploading all of my old transactions, which you can download from your online banking app and send to your Squad email address. It's super easy. With Squad, there's no ads and there's no concerns over the safety of your data because you're not giving them any of your sensitive data, which is the best part. So overall, if you're looking for a better budgeting platform, I highly recommend you check out Squad, which you can actually do for free. Click the link in the description of the video or in the pinned comment to get a free 15-day trial. And if you like it, their Duo plan is only $11 per year, which is an absolute steal. Not only that, but you can also take 15% off of the already extremely generous subscription price by using code Ryne15 when you check out. I've personally really enjoyed using Squad, and I think you will too, so definitely check out that free 15-day trial in the description or in the pinned comment and join the Squad today. Anyway, guys, getting back to it and returning to my spreadsheet here, right now, as we saw, my total portfolio is valued at just under $70,000, and on average, I'm bringing in just about $220 per month in dividends, which is not quite yet 10% of where I'd like to be before I start actually using some of this income to pay my bills. Now, obviously, my thoughts on this can change as time goes on, but I could see myself wanting to start pulling some of this income when I reach a point where this portfolio is generating about $2,500 per month in dividends. I figure at this point, I could use about $1,000 of that to start paying some of my bills. I feel like I will have earned it at that point, but that would still leave about $1,500 per month to be reinvested back into the portfolio, which would keep that dividend snowball rolling and keep that income growing at a pretty respectable rate. And having said that, it does beg the question, how long would this take? At the rate that I'm currently going, how long would it take to reach a point where my portfolio is generating $2,500 per month? And to figure this out, guys, we are going to be using the marketbeat.com dividend calculator, which is one of my favorite free tools. This is such a great resource for investors, and this allows you to forecast the growth of your portfolio so you can see what your portfolio value and your dividend income might look like in the future. And down here, we can see that I've input all the stats for my dividend portfolio. We've got my starting value here of about $69,500, my portfolio's current dividend yield of about 3.8%. Right now, my portfolio, the average dividend growth rate is 8.3%, and this number could change over time. It could increase from here, it could decrease from here, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to use my current dividend growth rate, and I'm also going to account for a 5% share price appreciation. So between this number here and this number there, that would bring my total return to about 8.8%. And then last but not least, guys, as we saw earlier, I'm investing $230 every single week, which amounts to an $11,960 annual contribution. And based on this input, guys, to grow the portfolio to a point where it was bringing in $2,500 per month in dividends, which amounts to $30,000 per year, it would only take me 14 years. At this point in time, my portfolio's balance would be about $550,000, which is a really nice chunk of change. And also at this time, I'd be bringing in $33,171 every single year, which actually amounts to $2,764 every single month. So I'd be over the mark. And what's cool is that at this point, 14 years from today, I'm only going to be 44 or 45 years old. I'll still be kind of a young buck. I'll still have a lot of life ahead of me. Now that's all very cool, but here's the problem. Some of this income and a lot of the contributions in this time period will be going towards my Roth IRA. And I can't start withdrawing any of the gains or the dividend income from my Roth IRA until I'm almost 60 years old, which would be like another 15, 16 years from this point. So with that said, it would probably make more sense if we redid this calculation just looking at my taxable brokerage account. And looking at the stats on this, the current market value of this portfolio is just under $60,000, and every single month I'm bringing in 50 cents short of $200, which is really nice. And also my dividend yield's a bit higher than the overall portfolio. It's coming in at about 4%, and my dividend growth rate is just above 8%. Now running this calculation again, here's what the setup looks like. We'll use $60,000 for the starting principal. It's basically there, so we'll just round up a few dollars. We'll have a starting dividend yield of exactly 4%. We'll have the annual dividend growth rate be 8%. Then we'll also stick to the same 5% share price appreciation. And last but not least, we'll set the annual contributions to $5,200 because as we saw earlier, I'm only investing $100 per week into my taxable brokerage account, which amounts to this $5,200 per year. And as I'm sure you can imagine, with a lower starting portfolio value and with a lower rate of contributions, it's going to take a bit longer to get to that same $2,500 per month. And instead of only taking 14 years, now it will take us 17 years to reach a point where I'm bringing in $2,500 per month. After this time, the portfolio will be valued at about $480,000, and I'll be bringing in about $32,000 of annual dividend income, which amounts to about $2,670 per month, which isn't bad. At that point, I'll be 47 or 48 years old, which is still pretty nice, but I think I can do better. Let's see what this looks like if we juice up the contributions just a little bit. So now guys, instead of only investing $100 per week, let's see what this looks like if I invest double that amount, $200 per week, which is $10,400 per year. It looks like doing this and doubling the contributions will bring us back to 15 years. After these 15 years, I'll have a balance of about $550,000, and I'll be bringing in $34,223 per year, which breaks down to about $2,850 every single month. Once again, we're over the mark, but it looks like if I want all this to happen in the next 15 years, I really need to step it up with my taxable contributions. I think we can make it happen though. Now, some of you guys might be looking at all of this thinking, there's no way you'll be able to live off dividends if you're only bringing in a measly $2,800 per month, which I understand. You know, at that point in time, $2,800 per month probably won't pay all my bills, but if I wanted to use all of that income at that time, $2,800 in passive income could really go a long way. And it's also important to keep in mind that everyone has a different strategy, everyone has a different way of doing things, everyone has different needs, and therefore everyone will have a different magic number that they'll need to live off dividends, which is what we're talking about in this next video right over here. In this one, I'm going to tell you how you can find your magic number to live off dividends, and then kind of like what we did in this video, we'll figure out how long it's going to take to actually get there. So click right over here to learn all about that, and I'll see you in the next one.